Zach, this intro is filmed with anamorphics just for you, buddy. Welcome to the week of ZMF. I actually have 3 reviews planned and 1 whole roundup video. Before we get into that though, I want to thank Zach with ZMF for sending all these headphones out for a review. They're not paying or asking me to say anything good or bad, and like always, all thoughts and opinions are my own. Okay, go time. This is the latest and greatest version of the Ori, the 3.0. The build here is standard ZMF, which is to say pretty awesome. Fits pretty well. They have great ergonomics. They do lean a little bit heavy if you've never had a ZMF headphone. And if you're not familiar with them, one of the great things about ZMF is that every headphone is basically one of a kind because they use these wood cups. Specifically, this one uses a torrefied black limbo wood. The rest of the build and the headband are pretty standard ZMF, which is nice. They use a locking XLR connector in the bottom, similar to that of the Caldera. And this particular headphone utilizes little bass plugs that I pretty much leave out all the time. Depending on what you like from your headphones, you may prefer to put them in or take them out or just transfer between in and out. Now, I've tried a number of different pads with this, actually more than just these, but I actually find that their stock choice for pads is the best for me. The pads that I would recommend the most for this are the Caldera lambskin thick top perforated pads. Those had the best frequency response for my ear and just had a more enjoyable overall tuning than anything else that I listened to it on. Now, because of all the different potentials, I don't want to be reviewing 80 different versions of the same headphone. So I'm just going to be reviewing this in the stock formation with the bass porting out. Just real simple. Now, internally, this uses an 80mm planar magnetic driver, and it is priced pretty high at $2,200. Now, for that, of course, with ZMF, you get a really good build, excellent build quality. I think the drivers actually come with a lifetime warranty, which is nice, and I think should probably be the standard for most high-end headphones, if I'm being honest, so good on them there. Regarding the sound signature, there is one thing that I really want to focus on here, which is sound staging, because it's really interesting, it's very good, and very different from another planar magnetic headphone, the Caldera Close that they have. Now, for one, internally, they're using, they call it the ADS, which is the atrium dampening system internally in this. And the reason why that's actually interesting is because that is the same dampening system that they're using in the Caldera, but you're getting 2 vastly different results. This one, to me, sounds very much like a closed back planar magnetic headphone. This is a very intense and focused headphone. This comes across with like a lot of immediate fidelity, a lot of detail. And while the imaging precision is immaculate, everything seems very, very focused and like right on top of you. In contrast, this seems quite wide and quite open-ended. The Ori has a much more backed off and wider overall soundstage, where the closest sounding sounds don't sound nearly as kind of attention grabbing as on the Caldera, which is interesting and actually a win in my opinion for the Ori. Now, I'll have more to say about this comparison at the end of the week for a separate video, so make sure you subscribe for that if you are interested in more of these comparisons, as well as a couple comparisons to headphones like the Bokeh. When it comes to overall detail retrieval, this is one of the areas where I do feel like the totality of detail capability from the Ori is a little bit lacking. When you compare it to not just the Caldera, but when you compare it to another $2,000 closed back headphone like a DCA E3, the detail retrieval is obviously not the point. This is not like a detail monster quite like the Caldera is. The last thing I'll say about this for now is that if you are somebody who seeks out detail and that is one of your top priorities before tuning and before like sound tuning preference, the Caldera is probably going to be worth the extra money if you're focused on a brand like ZMF. The ability to retrieve detail on the Caldera is significantly better than on the Ori or the Bokeh. So again, depending on where your priorities are, one headphone will be better for you than the other. So that being said, what is the Ori's purpose? What is it good at? Well, oddly enough, I find it to be kind of a jack of all trades while not having a master in any particular place. Which could be a really good thing or a really bad thing depending on how you're looking at it. For example, the bass fidelity is really, really good. It's a super clear, high resolution bass like you would expect from a top of the line planar. When it comes to bass impact and overall slam and that feeling of kind of that pulsating bass, both the Caldera and the Ori are kind of weak here, and I would prefer lower end ZMF headphones like the Bokeh for total bass impact and overall just bass presence. These have more of a flatter line delivery, and I think that this would be one area that people would typically EQ more bass into for the Ori. Now there's a caveat here. When it comes to fidelity, the Ori beats the Bokeh, but because of the presence of the Bokeh, I find the bass to be a little bit more pleasing and more impressive overall. On a technical audiophile level, I think that the Ori is doing a better job. It just comes down to preference and tuning. I think that this is one of the bigger downsides and frustrations that a lot of these companies have when it comes to making a closed back planar design is oftentimes the bass is usually not able to also hit substantially while mitigating some of the other downsides in the other areas of the frequency response for a closed back planar design. Now for mid-range, I want to separate this into two areas, frequency response and tonality. I have no idea how they are managing to get their whole line's tonality to be so good. ZMF vocals just sound otherworldly. They sound so syrupy and saturated and yet subtle. They don't come across anything other than just absolutely pleasing to listen to. And they have some of the most unique timbre, and I would love to know their secrets. They won't tell me, but I'm sure they have some secrets here because they have the most consistently good mid-range of any brand that I've heard. When it comes to frequency response though, it is a little bit weird. They have a pretty good kind of lower and mid-range area for frequency, but they seemingly have a pretty large dip in the upper mid-range. And it sort of leaves those vocals sounding a bit farther away and a bit less kind of hyper-focus like the Caldera can do. And I think this is one of those things that's adding to the wider overall feeling of this headphone. But if you're into really focused vocals, if you just think something like HD600, if you're into that style of vocal delivery, this isn't going to quite give it to you because of the intensity and focus difference. Now, to be completely fair to different listening styles and preferences, this is really going to be up to just how you like your vocals to come across. For some people, they're going to like something that's a bit more of like a stagey experience like this is, where everything's a bit stepped back. It's not totally focused internally in your head. And other people are going to prefer a more headphone type sound that is just a bit more kind of intense and has that kind of fixated, focused feeling. Different tuning styles for different preferences for sure. But if you're looking at a frequency response graph, I'm pretty sure in the upper mids, this is going to be a little bit dipped. And then you have treble. I don't know if it's a dampening thing, but the treble really doesn't come across very detailed or very forward on this headphone. And when you compare it to an E3 or Caldera, you really see a lot of that detail retrieval kind of be missed. When you're just listening to this in a bottle, you don't really notice it by itself, but when you start comparing it to other things is where you start to notice that detail is seemingly really not the point. Now, to be completely fair here, I think it is more than fair to say that this, for its price tag, should be more detailed. And I'm inclined to agree with that, to be honest. I think that you can get a bit more detail with really exacting amplifiers. But as of right now, even on a detailed amp, you're not really going to be able to extract an immense amount of detail like you can with some other headphones. So that may or may not be up to your preference. My overall conclusion, a lot of ZMF headphones, it's just like, my recommendation is really spend the extra money and go and try it at a show. The uniqueness of the build quality and having like a headphone that is the only one that looks exactly like this is super cool. Their mid-range is legitimately just disgustingly good. It's just amazingly good. The tonality and timbre of vocals is just top of the line. It's really incredible. I think you have options though. I think if you want overall detail and fidelity, I think going a little bit higher in price for the Caldera is a little bit better. This also sits somewhat interestingly where it's also not going as warm and as soft sounding as the Bokeh is. And it's not only priced in the middle, but kind of sounds in the middle of something like a Bokeh to a Caldera. So again, it's kind of occupying that like jack of all trades in the middle category. I would highly recommend going to a show and checking out not only this headphone, but a lot of their others to see if it's going to fit your tuning preference. For me and my preference, I would pick other ZMF headphones over this one, but I can also see a lot of people picking this one over the other options. It really just depends. Also, as a brief side note, I've been playing Battlefield 6 over the weekend. This is a god tier gaming headphone, oddly enough. It's not really the intended purpose, but if you play a lot of FPS, I think that the tuning is actually very complimentary of a gaming headphone, especially with the sound staging. If you need a closed back headphone, that's just surprisingly incredible for that game. It's awesome. To wrap up my overall experience, this is one of those headphones where on certain songs you listen to it, you are going to be absolutely mind blown with how well it integrates and jives and kind of, just connects with that song. And then you'll listen to other songs that just don't seem as alive. They don't seem to have that connection that other songs do. It's definitely a pretty interesting headphone. And of the ZMFs I've heard, I actually think it fills a really nice gap. It's honestly just a question if you prefer to listen to this, that, or the other thing. And that goes for most headphones, but ZMF is a unique brand that offers a lot of different options for a lot of different people. So I'd recommend checking them out. And make sure you subscribe. We're actually going to be reviewing the Caldera tomorrow. Thanks a lot. See ya.